There you go.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jenna from Alcoholics. So yeah, Miss Bubbles. That's funny. So I just want to say I am so grateful to be here. I'm so glad that you guys are all here. It's amazing what we can do in Alcoholics Anonymous now, right? So the fact that we can meet like this, when I got sober, this was not an option. So this is pretty awesome still to me. I still think it's such an incredible thing. So what I'd like to do is just touch on a little bit about like what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. You know, um, uh, what I want to tell you is that I got sober at the age of 14. I celebrated 35 years this past year, and boy, a whole lot of life has happened in that time. But prior to getting sober, the way I coped was to escape. I don't know about you guys, but for me, I didn't know how to handle the thoughts in my head and the things I wanted to do and all this kind of stuff. I found out that alcohol would numb that. And I thought that was pretty awesome. I didn't understand the dynamics of alcoholism. I knew that people were alcoholics, but they had to fit a certain thing for them to be an alcoholic. So I knew I couldn't be one because I was too young. You had to at least be 21. That's what my head said. Um, and coming from a family of drinkers, it was just like, oh, well, I'm not like them, or I'm not like that person. I just kind of tried to keep to myself. I was, even before I started drinking, I was always the odd one, the one that's just a tad bit different, right? And people knew it. I knew it. It was just the way it was. And there was a lot of dark times in my family of origin. So, we were very much about putting up the appearances, keeping up appearances. So that's the life we lived. It was like this dual life. Like when we were in public, we had to be one way. When we were in private, we were totally different. And I discovered alcohol by a group of guys that I hung out with. They bet I couldn't drink like 8 glasses of wine without getting drunk or whatever. I'm like, oh, I got this bet, right? So I start off drinking. I'm like, ooh, 1 glass. And then, ooh, 2 glasses. I'm like, who needs glasses, right? So I just drank the whole bottle. I'm like, see, I'm totally fine. And that's why I believed. I believed I was totally fine. I couldn't stand upright, but I'm totally fine. And with that came the realization that I didn't have to be accountable. At least that's what I thought. I didn't have to be accountable for the actions. I didn't have to worry about anything. I could just totally be on a different plane. I loved, loved, loved the escape that alcohol gave me. I loved, loved, loved the excuse alcohol gave me. And from then on, it was any opportunity I had, I was going to drink. So I was in 7th grade, 8th grade at the time. All my parents saw, what my parents saw was there was this change in character, right? This change in moral direction, this change in behavior, but they had no idea I was drinking. So they didn't know that that was the reason. They just knew something was up. And they sent me to treatment based on the fact that, I needed some moral character built, and that my priorities were off. So they didn't send me to treatment going, oh, she's an alcoholic, she needs help. They didn't know that aspect of it. They just knew something was way off from the way I was. They saw a complete change in me. I shouldn't say used to, I was always like really sweet and nice and kind. And then I just became quiet once I started drinking. I just like was disrespectful, was not courteous to anybody. I mean, I don't think many teenagers are, but like I took it to the next level with being an active addiction. And I was doing anything I could just to drink and get that escape. I didn't care what was put in front of me. I would do it. Whether it was drugs or alcohol, I would do it. I am so grateful that I got sober when I did before all this other stuff came out, because otherwise I don't know if I would have survived. So I ended up, my last drunk, I drank a bottle of Jack Daniels. I took a box of pills, and I remember seeing myself floating in the air above me. And I'm telling everybody because, I'm out of it. I'm like, look at me, look at me. Isn't that cool? Right. So, and come to find out, I have alcohol poisoning, almost died because I had drank so much, but I was just like, oh, there I am floating in the air thinking it's really cool. But whatever happened from that switch when I came to the next day, I'm like, I can't drink. I just can't drink. When I drank, I couldn't stop. And I just thought that was the normal, right? That anybody that drinks can't stop. I just figured that's what it was. Um, Also, when I drank, nothing, that was just priority. There was no other priorities. That was just the number one thing. It took over any other thing that may have to happen that day. I remember they specifically would give me my own bottle so they could have theirs, and I wanted to steal theirs until I finished mine, right? So, because I was underage, I couldn't go to the bars. It was my friends' parents and stuff like that that supplied me. My parents had marked all the bottles for my brother because I had an older brother, and I was the one that was taking it all and then filling it with water. So he was getting in trouble for me taking the booze from my family, but they just figured it was him. There was no way that they thought it was me. So it was very interesting how we started finding out more and more. My parents found out about this place when I was in junior high. And they sent me there thinking that I was going to have some moral psychology taken care of, and I was going to become a decent human being again. And when I got to this place, they gave me that test, that 20 questions, the lovely 20 questions if you're an alcoholic, and I'm going through, I'm like, yeah, it's no big deal to me. I'm not thinking of what it means. And they came to my parents. They're like, I don't know if you guys realize this, but your daughter's an alcoholic. And she continues, she's going to die. And she needs to be here for rehab. I'm like, oh, I'm good. I'm good because, God, I'm not going to stop this. And they're like, no, you're not good. You're not good. So that started my little journey in rehab. And I got to tell you, this whole AA thing was not something that I wanted to be a part of at all. I was like, no way. And they started taking us to meetings because that's what rehabs do. And I'm like, my name's Jennifer, and these a-holes are trying to tell me I'm an alcoholic. I was not very happy about it at all. And then they start talking about the effects of alcohol. And they start talking about how people feel about themselves and how they try to hide it and the thoughts of themselves and stuff. And I could start relating a little bit. And that got me really angry because for me, I was like, but what am I going to do on my 21st birthday? What am I going to do when I get married? What am I going to, I had all these drinking plans and they were trying to mess them up. I don't understand that. And they just kept on saying, if you drink, you'll die. If you drink, you will die. And I was like, you guys are being so dramatic. Obviously, I was being dramatic all the time, but they were the ones being dramatic this time, right? And then my parents said, if you drink, you're going to have to go back to rehab. So that kind of convinced me for a little while not to drink. When I first got sober, it had nothing to do with, oh, I want this beautiful spiritual life that AA can offer me. It was, my parents will throw me in rehab if I drink again. I still think it's funny. My parents would get mad at me and they would ground me from AA. So I'm one of the few people that got grounded from AA, because if I didn't act a particular way, they're like, we're not going to give you the privilege of going to see these people. And so it was pretty interesting. When I got out of rehab, my whole family, it changed the way people saw alcoholism and alcoholics. They were having to look at the fact that children can be alcoholics. Teenagers can be. Teenagers can get sober and they don't have to go through everything else that other people have gone through. But what does that look like? How do you have somebody sober in the house, right? My mom's idea was get rid of all alcohol forever, and anybody else who does it is an alcoholic, right? So, and my dad's like, come on, girl, get into the real world. What are you going to do? Stay in AA your whole life? They had different opinions of it. They were trying to figure it out. And the whole time I'm just like, all right, yeah, okay, I'll go to these meetings so my parents can't throw me back in. And then my ego was there. So my ego was like, well, I won't take a drink just because these old guys think I'm gonna, right? So there was all that too. I was going to meetings, telling everybody the best way to raise their family and fix their marriages. Mind you, I'm 14 years old sitting in a meeting and I'm telling them how they're going to fix it because, I know everything. It didn't even dawn on me until years later how egotistical that was, that I'm telling them what to do. I thought that was my job. And the thing that I am so very grateful for is that you guys let me keep coming back, even though I was an idiot. I was disruptive. I wasn't kind and considerate. I told everybody what to do. I was always, always, always speaking over people. And the group of people that I got sober with are just like, you know what? Keep coming back. Keep coming back. I kept coming back. Now, mind you, I was a tornado the whole time. But they're like, don't drink. It will get better. They were wondering for a while with me, but they're like, don't drink. It does get better. And as I started doing that stuff, I was able to get through high school. I actually quit high school and got my diploma later. But I started learning a little bit more about myself. I realized that I love being the victim. I love people feeling sorry for me and say, oh, poor Jennifer, I can't believe that happened. And then sitting in that and not sitting in solution, but sitting in the, pour me, pour me, pour me, pour me, pour me a drink, right? But it's like, oh, and the more people I could get to feel sorry for me, the better I felt loved, because I was twisted like that. I hadn't learned boundaries or anything. And I met this, my first sponsor, they told me to find somebody that has what I want. I do remember hearing this. And this woman had a tan. And that's why I picked her to be my sponsor, because, I was looking for spiritual healing. No, she had a tan. She knew where the beach was. I want her to be my sponsor. So needless to say, there wasn't a lot of spiritual connection there. There wasn't a whole lot of stuff, but she stuck with me. I stuck with her. And I continued to spiral out of control emotionally and spiritually, even though I wasn't drinking. So I don't know if any of you guys have experienced that, but I got to tell you, I've made more amends because of the stuff I've done in sobriety than the stuff I did drinking. Because when I was drinking, I could say, yeah, I was drinking. In sobriety, I was like, yeah, I'm just an a-hole. I'm so sorry. I'm trying not to be that anymore. So it was very difficult for me to start learning how to live differently. I came from an abusive home. We were used to having the crisis. We were used to stirring stuff up and then watching what happened, and distracting. And I didn't know how to change those patterns. I thought that's just how people lived. And I remember distinctly going to a meeting and they were reading, here, let me get that, reading from the big book. And it says, the alcoholic is like a tornado, roaring his way through the lives of others. Hearts are broken, sweet relationships are dead, affections have been uprooted. Selfish and inconsiderate habits have kept the home in turmoil. We feel a man is unthinking when he says that sobriety is enough. I remember I had heard that before, but I heard it this day. I'm like, I'm still the tornado. I remember just crying. I'm like, I'm still causing turmoil. I am still the one that's wreaking havoc, and just not drinking is not enough. And what can I do differently? And that's when my life started to change. I wish I could say that happened like 1 year in my sobriety or 2 years. Nope, it so didn't. It was more like 8, 9, 10 years, So my family, we used to tease that like I've been sober for over 30 years and 20 of it, I've been a decent human being, right? Because it took me a while to get it. It took me a while to get that. It took me a while to learn that just because I thought it didn't mean I had to share it. It took me a lot to learn that just because it was my truth, it didn't have to be everybody else's. Because, I want everybody to have my truth so that everybody's on my side, so everybody agrees with me, right? But my truth doesn't have to be everybody else's truth. And that doesn't mean I don't matter. It means just we have different opinions. I started sitting with this woman. Her name was Jo Sweet, and she was super sweet. And she would just say, how about you keep your mouth shut and listen for a little bit? I'm like, I really don't think that's the best idea. She's like, honey, shut up. I'm like, okay. Because I had all the answers. She goes, what happens if somebody else has a different answer? I was like, what? Like, I know what I'm supposed to be doing. She's like, well, you're here and this is what's happening in your life. Is this how you want it to continue? I was like, no, I don't want it to continue this way. Because I was just tearing stuff up. My family, everybody, anybody I touched, it was a tornado. It was just a tornado. And she taught me how to shut up and actually listen. She taught me that just because I thought it didn't mean I had to respond to it. She taught me that just because I had a decision to make doesn't mean I have a crisis. It means I just have a decision to make. Because for me, every decision was a crisis. I had to get everybody's thoughts on it. What do you think? This is such a big deal. It was just a decision. It was just a decision. Prior to meeting this woman, there was this gentleman who had all this time, and he was kind of the person that, like the younger people, because I had a group of younger people we hung around with, that we would just go there. And he would leave his light on, and we knew even if it was 3 o'clock in the morning, if his light was on, there was coffee there, and we could go there. It was like a safe haven. And he was so funny and kind, and so was his wife. And I would go there, I would talk. He's like, hey, the answer's in the book. Do you want to see it? I'm like, no, I don't want to see it. Now I so wish I could have that coffee time back and say, yes, show me in the book where it's at. But I was so resistant. I was angry that the book was written for me, for old people in their, in the 30s. I was angry that my coping mechanism was taken away from me, and now I had to be responsible. I was angry that I didn't know how to be a decent human being without some coaching. And, that was frustrating to me. So when he used to say, it's in the book, let me show you. Do you want to see where it's in the book? I'm like, no. Now I'm like, hey, I think that might be in the book. You want to see? Let's get in the book and see, and it's just, it feels so good to be a part of the big book today. It feels so good to be able to look up and know. For me, I don't know about you guys. For me, the big book fairies come in and like I'll read something. I'm like, has that always been there? Because it'll just hit me differently. And that's what's so beautiful about the program is that as I grow and change, my understanding grows and changes. It's sometimes I wish it was just like a constant, like you got it and you never have to do it again. Most of the time, I'm very grateful that this can evolve and I can use it in so many stages of my life. So there's a couple things that were pretty notable about my sobriety or dry time or dry-iety, whatever you guys want. So dry-iety, I think somebody called it one time. So I did not pick up a drink. I did not pick up a drug. I just picked up a lot of crisis. I did not know how to be a partner. I knew how to grab projects. So everybody I dated, of course, was a project. And because most of my dating has been since, I got into the program, I dated several people in my home group. Can I suggest that you don't do that? But, that I didn't know. I was just like, oh, I just want to be a part of. And I remember going to a meeting going, I've kind of been involved with all these people. It never dawned on me to stop my behavior. I was just like, I probably should go to another meeting. I'm like, no, just stop the behavior. Stop the behavior. And I just wanted to blame everything on everybody else. Like, oh, if I was treated better, this would happen. If this didn't happen to me when I was young, I'd be acting different. And this one woman said, you know what you went through was awful. And nobody should ever do that to a child. But what you're doing with it as an adult is you now. And that really opened up my mind. I was like, I am carrying all this that these people did to me and making it as if they're doing it to me now. I'm living as if it's still happening. And I don't want to live that way. I don't want to live as a victim. Did bad shit happen? Yes, bad stuff really happened. That's in and out of the rooms. But to carry it all the time and be in that anger instead of in the light of what can I do with this? It says somewhere, I'm so sorry that I'm not very good with words, but it says about how our deepest secrets can be the light for somebody else, in their lifeline. All those things that happened to me, I've been able to turn and share with other people and say, you're not the only one. I'm so very sorry. that somebody hurt you like that. But I can tell you that you can get through it. Who would have ever thought that that would come from those times? I didn't get that, you know. For so long, I thought I was a waste of space, that I was a mistake, that I wasn't able to bring any good to people. And through seeing the program and coming back, people would show me, hey, you can do things differently. I started doing things differently. I started making a positive difference in people's lives instead of just the tornado, right? I started making a positive difference. I started actually getting this thing. It's called integrity. Let me tell you, I didn't know what that meant for a very long time, but I started getting it. It was really cool. And then people started trusting me with their stories and their lives. I was like, this is magical to be a part of that. To have somebody allowing their spirit to dance with my spirit for a while and tell me what's going on, that's a big deal. And I started realizing that as a big deal. So I look back, I'm just so amazed that you guys let me keep coming back with me being such a jerk. And that like I've actually like grown up some and become somewhat of a decent human being. You know, I didn't anticipate that. I live out in Arizona now. I'm from Chicago. And I went back, say, I want to say it was about maybe 5, 10 years ago. And the people that saw me from when I first got sober, they're like, oh my God, you're such a miracle. You're such a miracle. Because there was no way, if you look at that person that I was coming into the meeting, would you ever expect me to become who I am today? So I am the girl that, you know, kicked people when they were down, made fun of them because it made me feel better, brought myself up higher by belittling others. I was the one that didn't consider other people. I was the one that married my first husband because he wasn't afraid of the guy trying to kill me, right? So, I mean, I wasn't like really getting my priorities straight. I was the person that was honor roll student through high school and quit halfway through a senior year so I could live on my own. You know, I just wasn't making good decisions, obviously. And it took me a while to learn about having value, allowing other humans to have value. And that just because somebody, I may not need that person in my life doesn't mean they're not important in somebody else's life, right? So who am I to say that they're not allowed? I don't get that. I get to be a part of people's lives that come to me and they want to get into the book and into the steps and tell me about what's going on. And I can actually show them now. So I still have, you know, I have my 3rd edition big book and it's all kinds of fallen apart. And there's highlights and there's stuff. And it's because I loved on it so much, right? I'm the person that took a big book, spilled coffee on it, used different kinds of highlighter, different kinds of pens and pencils, flipped the page to look like I've read the book when I never read the book. But I made my book look used. And I was talking from this place of knowledge, right? Now I have a book that's actually been used and loved and, you know, shared with people. And I didn't realize that that was a possibility. I really thought AA was about just not drinking. But just not drinking isn't enough. It's a great start, right? But just isn't enough. And to start going through the steps, to start to be able to allow myself to look at what kind of higher power do I have in my life? You know, and it's a higher power I can do business with. You know, because I could have a higher power, but if I'm not willing to do business with that higher power, what good is it? You know, and to know that that's going to evolve and change and that's okay. I've been able to do some silly stuff that I never imagined. I never knew that I was capable of learning and that I was smart, even though I was in academically talented programs and stuff. It never dawned on me that I was somewhat intelligent. And I quit, like I said, I quit high school. I was able to go back. And then like 10 years later, I'm like, hey, I wonder if I could go to college. Just a thought, maybe maybe I could go to college. So I started taking a couple classes and I passed them. I was like, huh, like I can stay on task and actually finish things by deadline, stuff like that I wasn't used to. And I started going to school to become a teacher. In that time, I also looked at the fact of like, as a single mom, how can I handle, you know, taking care of my kid, going to school full time on a teacher's salary? And I realized I couldn't. So then I was like, maybe I'll be a nurse. I swore I wasn't going to be a nurse. My mom was a nurse, my grandma was a nurse, and my aunt was a nurse. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be a nurse. So then I started going to nursing school. You know, because that's just how I evolved. I realized that that I could better take care of my kid with that degree. I ended up moving out to Arizona from Chicago because I was working 3 jobs. I was going to school full time, and I was a mom, a single mom. And my parents said, "Hey, come out here. We'll help you so that you can go to nursing school." So I came out here and I started going to nursing school. I got my associate's degree. I'm like, oh, so well, it's going to happen. I kept going. I'm like, oh, the bachelor's. I'll get a bachelor's degree, right? I'm like, let's just see if this can happen. And then I got my master's degree. I was like, really? So I got to tell you, I was in my second week of my master's program and people are all talking about graduate school. I'm like, what the hell are you guys talking about? They're like, what? I'm like, you guys keep saying graduate school. They're like, honey, you're in it. I'm like, I'm in graduate school? Bam, I was so excited to find that out because I really didn't know. I was just going to see what I could do, you know? I have been able, throughout my sobriety, I've been able to deal with some life, a lot of life actually, and deal with more of it with some grace, some dignity and grace. I talk to my sponsees a lot about dignity and grace, and how can I go at something with more of a servant's heart than a taker's heart. So how can I put myself in that place? I've been able to do volunteer work. I've been able to speak at high schools about my journey. I've been on multiple boards and different things to like keep AA going, right? And keep different clubs going. I get to spend my time with women and talk about how they want to change and what they want to change. There's been so much life that has happened. 5 years ago, my grandson was diagnosed with cancer. And honestly, when you think of all the things I'm like, you can't stay sober through that. That was a big one for me. It's like, how do we do this, right? How do we feel this? Because I don't know about you guys, I'm not good with feelings. Still after all this time, I still don't like feelings, especially when they're strong, right? And it was like, okay, how can I be the person that they need me to be? How can I be responsible, do the next thing, still feel my feelings, grab support, rely on AA, rely on God, use the steps, right? You guys had taught me all that stuff. So every surgery, I was probably at a meeting every morning before a surgery going into surgery. I'm scared to death and people would love on me, right? I would tell people that I'm scared and I don't know what to do. And they're like, that's okay, just keep on doing. And we just keep on doing, regardless of what happens. We just get to keep on doing. And hopefully we do it in a way that people know that it matters. Like I keep on doing, and I have all these people that support me. I have a God that loves me. And so hopefully I can do that for somebody else. So from my experience, my grandson, just so you guys know, he's okay. We just hit 5 years. He's good. It was a lot to go through. And then one of my sponsees had a grandson that got cancer. And I just supported her and we kept on going and we figured it out, right? Because as a group, we can do just about anything. Me left to my own devices, I will screw it all up. I know that today. So I was taught a long time ago that my first thought could be an alcoholic thought. I got to tell you, my first thought, second thought, and usually my third will get me in trouble if I act on them right away. So, and then I know that about myself. So then I wait for the next right action, next right thing to do. I know there was a part of me that thought like if I go through the steps and I ask God to take my character defects, I won't have any anymore. because, we all know how perfect we are. So it was very interesting to find out that all of my character defects didn't go away, that I still had to work on them, that they didn't just instantly go away. But you guys gave me these tools to say, oh, I don't want to act like that anymore. I want to act different. You guys gave me examples of who I wanted to be. Some of you guys gave me examples of what I didn't want to be. I was that example for a lot of people for a long time, but to be able to look at and go, okay, how do I want my life to be different? I thought AA was for the Skid Row bum, with their bottle in the bag, didn't slept on the streets. I had this image of what an alcoholic was. An alcoholic wasn't the 14-year-old girl who almost drank herself to death. That was just a hobby. It wasn't alcoholism, right? So, I had this image, and that image has changed. And over the years, it keeps on evolving. I see more young people coming in, and I see people having different resources to them. Can I tell you guys how grateful I am that social media wasn't around when I first got sober? Oh my goodness, I can't imagine getting sober with the social media that's evolved right now. I can't imagine getting sober at any other time than I did. I used to go to meetings where they didn't hold hands and they said the Lord's Prayer and they didn't say hi and they were, this is how we do it, right? I went to meetings where we all held hands and everything was fun. I went to meetings where they gave poker chips for their 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. I remember all that kind of stuff. I went to meetings who didn't give any chips or coins. We called them coins, right? Instead of chips. I went to meetings in Indiana. I went to meetings in Illinois. I came to Arizona. I realized you guys all did it wrong. I had to teach you the right way to do AA. And then I realized to keep my mouth shut and figure out what's really happening, right? Because that's how it is. As for me and my sobriety, things change. And it's how am I going to deal with that change? I got married to a man who was actually a partner instead of a project. Who would have ever thought that would happen? Right? I am a person that will paint any red flag green just so I can have an excuse to be a victim. And with my current partner, I was like, oh, I don't have to paint any red flags green. I don't have to fix this person. This person can be my partner, not my project. I didn't know that was possible. I didn't know it was possible for me to be a partner instead of a project, right? Just because I was picking other people for a project, guess what? I was some people's projects too, And I learned how I could do that differently. My daughter grew up just knowing that this is the kind of alcoholic she knows, right? This mom that's living life, She went to first grade, I think it was, and they're like, tell us something special about your family. And my daughter raises her hand and it's like, my mom's an alcoholic, right? So I had gone to her parent-teacher conference and the teacher was so sweet. She's like, just want to say, you know what? I'm really proud of you. I'm like, thank you. What are you talking about? And she's like, well, your daughter told us that you were an alcoholic. I said, yes. Just so you know, this is the only alcoholic she's seen is a sober one, right? But it was just part of our lifestyle. She goes to meetings when I celebrate, some milestones. And the last meeting, I think she said, I think I knew the Serenity Prayer before I knew the alphabet, because it had just become part of our life. It became part of our life. There was a part of me that thought that if I was going to AA and doing these things, that everything in life should be perfect. And that's not true. I wish it was, but everything in life is not perfect. But AA gives me a way to deal with it when it's not. AA gives me these spiritual tools and says, hey, don't drink. Remember there's a God. You don't have to be it. Fix yourself. Stop fixing everybody else and be available and be of service. And I try to do that now. I try to do that in every aspect of my life. I don't get to just work the program when I'm in a meeting. I mean, I can do that, but I choose to actually have the program as a part of my everyday. How am I courteous on a regular basis? How am I just not just nice in the meeting, but I'm nice when I leave too? You know, how do I go out of my way to make somebody else's day better? Do I treat the cashier better than I treat my husband, right? I have to look at these things. What am I doing? You know, why, where do I show grace? Where do I show kindness and love? And where do I need to, how do I keep my own house in order, right? I have to keep my own house in order. Believe me, I much rather redecorate your houses because it keeps me distracted from my mess, right? And let me redecorate your house. Let me keep your house in order. But to take ownership of my house, my stuff, my character defects, my way of doing things and go, okay, let's stop being all about my and me. And let's start talking about God being a part of this. Let's start talking about all the we, you know, and to be able to sit back and go, okay, please show me how to live in your light instead of my own shadow. That's one of my huge prayers, you know, because I want to just take control. If you just did it my way, I could be more comfortable, right? But that's not how it works. I need to step back and go, okay, show me where I need to be in this moment. Sometimes it's not all about action. Sometimes it's that pause, you know, that pause when agitated stuff that we've been taught. I do not do that with grace all the time. I will pause, but I will be agitated during the pause and waiting. I'll be stomping my foot, and it takes me a minute to just be calm and just be okay with what's going to happen. What's my next step? How can I make an issue better instead of worse? You know, because if I step foot in it, you know, I have to make sure that I am not flinging more stuff. When the shit hits the fan, turn the fan off and then figure out make an assessment, right? Don't just keep the fan going. So it's been very, very cool for me to see all these things come into my life. We talk a lot in the meetings about the promises, and there's promises for every step, right? Every step has their own promises. And I didn't understand that the promise of that your life will like build around you. You know, you're going to have family, you're going to have friends, and you're going to have this thing, and you're going to want to share it with other people because it becomes such a huge part of your spirit that you want other people to be able to have that joy too. And the idea that I would want somebody else to experience joy instead of just feeling sorry for me or experience what I want them to feel, you know, I want people to have joy. I want you guys to have joy. I want you guys to know that you matter and that you make a difference. I want everybody to know that they have a place. That's huge for me because I didn't know those things. I also know that just because somebody has a place doesn't mean they have to have my place, right? They can have their place someplace else. That's okay. That's okay. That I can come, I am not the person that can step in the way of anybody's recovery. That is not my job. You know, my job is to allow people to have their recovery, allow people to be themselves, and I can figure out my stuff. It's so nice that I have the opportunity to figure out my stuff. I still talk to my sponsor on a regular basis, you know, a new sponsor, not the one with the tan. I got somebody else, you know, and she's got some really good sobriety with her. And she just always talks about being God's channel. You know, she's like, I'm God's channel. That's just who I am. And she has such confidence and grace with that. And I love that. I don't feel that way about me so much, but you know what? It's really lovely to see it in her. And I get to show up at meetings. I get to speak at meetings in front of a bunch of strangers. I still get nervous every time I open my mouth. That's just how it is. You know, my husband was laughing at me earlier. He's in recovery. He's like, you're nervous, huh? I'm like, yeah, I'm nervous. I just get nervous, right? Because this is not just about, hey, and this happened. This is not my grocery list. This is my life. This is what I'm experiencing. And I have experienced great, great things in recovery. I have experienced hard things in recovery, and you guys always held me up. No matter what happens, you guys held me up. I get the opportunity to share with women what they're going through and hold their hand when it's hurting, right? I get to hold their hand when they're happy. I get to celebrate with them. I get to cry with them. And that means something to me today. When people tell me something, they pretty much know It's just to me that I'm not going to have to tell everybody else because I know the big secret, right? It's not about that anymore. The fact that I know what integrity means now is something that's really precious to me, that I know what kindness looks like, that I am not the person that has to rip off somebody's crown. I can straighten it out. You know, I look at that. Everybody has a crown. Am I going to straighten it out or am I going to knock it off? You know, how about I just straighten out the crown? You know, there's so many opportunities that have come my way. I got to be a bedside nurse for 13 years. My job was to be of service to other people. What an honor to have a job to be of service to other people, you know, and I'm still a nurse. I get to work through insurance because COVID because of COVID. I'm working on insurance. I get to train nurses how to engage with other people and how to make their lives better. That's my job. Here, this is what you can do to make somebody's life better. Do you want this job? Yes, they want the job because they want to make somebody's life better. How amazing it is that my daughter, she's living her life, but she knows that I have her back. You know, my family knows I got them. My friends know I have them. That I became a pillar. I became a pillar of experience, hope, and strength for my family and my friends. I would have never guessed I was going to be a pillar ever. You know, just to have the freedom to be a decent human being that cares deeply for other human beings. I didn't know I could be that. And I just want to thank you guys for allowing me this opportunity. We can be sober, considerate, and helpful regardless of what anyone says or does. Of course, we all fall much below the standard many times, but we must try to repair the damage immediately lest we pay the penalty by a spree. You know, if I do damage today, I can do something about it. And most of the time I do damage, it's not intentional. There was a time that was all intentional. But sometimes I step on people's toes, right? They get mad about it, of course. But I can say, you know what? I'm so very sorry about that. I will do everything I can not to ever do that again. Is there anything I can do to make it right with you? I know my behavior will change. It's not going to be, oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm going to do it again the next day. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm going to do it again the next day. It's about changing and evolving. I don't know. I came to AA because my parents were going to keep me in rehab if I didn't. I stayed initially because of ego. Now I stay because of the life it's given me. This beautiful life that I have. There's still a lot of stuff that hurts, right? But there is a beautiful life going on and I get to be a part of today. So thank you so much for having me a part of this. I hope that made some sense, and